Hey all, welcome to another Broken Meeple review, and despite sweltering in this 25-degree heat, on with the show. Now, for Empress 4, this is a publisher that you may have heard me refer to occasionally. You know, I kind of like them. I mean, I really like Hanamakoji. It's a great game, but I don't have that much of a thing for Empress 4. I mean, just the occasional game, you know, I sort of like from them. Yeah, I do like their games. They're pretty solid, particularly their small box affairs. Well, this is the largest one I've got from them, Realm of Sand, and I keep calling it Realms of Sand. I've got to stop doing that. But this one is kind of like an amalgamation of Splendor and Patchwork. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. In this one, you are attempting to collect these building cards that require you to put these polyomino pieces. Oh, well, to be honest, they're all free pieces. It's not quite polyomino like you expect from, say, Baron Park or Patchwork, but they're effectively different combinations of free tiles in different colors. And the idea is that you're putting them on this board in front of you, and you're trying to make patterns that match the cards in the middle. And it's set up pretty much identical to how Splendor is set up, with 3 different tiers of cards with some cards laid out. And you're trying to get the pattern in whatever way, shape or form orientation on your board to collect the card, which will give you victory points. And the idea is that as you collect these cards, each one has an hourglass symbol that dictates when the game is going to trigger for its end. And of course, once that happens, player with the most points wins.
Of course!
So like I said, this is Splendor and Patchwork molded together. I mean, Splendor with the cards, it's very simple what the objective is. Match the pattern, get the card, done. Nice and easy. With the Patchwork element, the tiles are laid out in a circle around the board, and you have this pawn that doesn't really move, unlike the other one. It basically just sort of stays at the front and dictates which tiles you're allowed to take in terms of at the end of your turn. You always have 3 to pick from and no more than that, so you don't end up with an ever-changing supply. But you effectively have to work with these tiles to put them on your board. But unlike other polyomino games, once you put the tile on the board, you replace it with these little single ones, and then you put the other tile back in that ring and it may get chosen later. So it's not like you have to figure out, where am I going to put this 3-pronged tile and it's going to stay there permanently. No, you replace it with the single-use, 1 space tiles, and you can cover stuff you've already done before, you just replace it with something else. On top of that, you can collect some little tokens that allow you to do some more combo shenanigans, but at its very core, you are effectively get the pieces, make the pattern, score the cards, the end. And if you want to play the advanced mode, you can basically flip your board over. It's got a different layout. You start with a player power, and your amount of restricted space can chop and change. It's a very simple game, much like pretty much everything that Empress 4 does. Like I say, pretty much everything. There are 1 or 2 I've heard of which are pretty more complex, but this is definitely gateway level, entry level game. Not difficult to teach this at all, and if you want to keep it really basic, you just use the one that doesn't give you special powers. Again, job done. Do people understand Tetris? Great. Can people read? That's all you need to do on the cards. It's basically, there's the pattern, there's how many victory points it is, and there's the reward at the bottom it gives you. Well, easy. It's not exactly difficult. The one thing I will say about this though, and granted Empress 4 don't exactly excel at this category, components are a little bit iffy. The rulebook itself is decent enough. It's got very good, pictorial representations of what you're going to do. It's really easy to follow. Like I say, I learned this straight from the rulebook, and so could you. Not a trouble at all. Now, the polyomino tiles, they're nothing to write home about. I mean, they're basically these sort of like cardboard pieces, and they come in different sort of shapes and colors and that. They're all well and good, but nothing to write home about. The same for some basic little cube markers and a few of those little beads that you basically put on your board instead of the tiles eventually. But the cards themselves, the artwork is okay. It's kind of functional. It basically sort of gives you the... Actually, I better take one out just to show you a bit better. But if the camera will focus on there, come on. Well, hopefully you can see it, but it basically has the building on the top of the card and then the pattern below it, and then the reward at the bottom and the victory points at the top. And if there was an hourglass on this card, it would be where my finger is. But, all the cards basically look like this. Nothing special, but nothing ugly either. What I really don't like are these. Yeah. Flimsy paperboards. Now, I know it keeps the cost down, but here's the problem. You want to leave this on the table. It's bellowing out in my hand. It's not as bad as having, say, a paper mat like from Vegas Showdown or something, but It's still a very flimsy mat. You're going to be trying to flatten these every occasion. Some of you might even go as far as to laminate these. And I'm almost thinking about it too, because it's just an irritating thing that you kind of have to bend the corners and that. These are a little bit on the flimsy side. I think these could have been better. I would have loved it if it was a solid piece of cardboard. I don't mind if it would have made the game cost a little bit more. I mean, every other game does it. Why can't they? I think it could have happened, but suffice to say, components and artwork are kind of ho-hum here. But that's not the main thing I go for with, Emperor S4 in general, although saying that, beautiful. But, this one's more about the gameplay. Nice and simple, but is it quick enough? There are a couple of issues I do have. The time it takes to play this game is very dependent on the players. If you have anybody who is remotely and prone to analysis paralysis, you should keep them in the shed, tie them up, feed them just so they don't kick the bucket, and leave them there for the duration you play this game. Because if anybody is remotely prone to analysis paralysis, this game way overstays its welcome. This is meant to be a 30 to 60 minute game. I guarantee you will overstep that 60-minute mark with 4 players if you have anybody who takes their time. Because yes, you can think about what you're doing before it gets to your turn, but you try find many players who do that. And of course, you might be gunning for a particular card, and you've already laid out your plan. Great, I'm going to do it. And then somebody takes that card. Do you have a backup plan? It's hard to get yourself back on that foot. This is definitely a game that's probably more enjoyable as a 2-player head-to-head or a 3-player game. I would dare say that 2 is probably the best count with this. 2-player, back and forth, with those rain of tiles, I think this one works pretty well. It does have a solo mode, but the solo mode is kind of meh. You essentially have 14 turns to get a certain amount of points or to get as high as you can, and then see how well you did. That's kind of it. There's not really much more of an objective here. So the solo mode is in here, so you can play this by yourself, but it's not exactly the best way to go about it. But overall, it certainly will engage your brain. You're definitely going to have to think hard. I mean, you need to be good at these spatial awareness style games in order to succeed here. Because you've got to race against the other players, but then you also have to keep an eye on what they're doing in case they're going to nick a card that you want. But then you're also trying to think, well, hang on a minute, if I build these tiles here, then I'll get these tokens which I could put on the board. I'll get them back eventually and reuse them, but then what do I need? I need lots of blacks. Well, there's a lot of black cards there. Okay, I'll grab that. I'll put this one here, put that one there, take that card, they go away, leaving the black. It really does hurt the brain at times, trying to plan ahead too far in this game. For what is very simple in the rules, it's a very tricky one to master. I've seen people sort of wander aimlessly, trying to put tiles wherever they feel like, not realizing just exactly how they're supposed to. After the first game, they've got more of a clue, but definitely this one has a lot more strategy. In fact, they've got into the habit now of putting like ratings on the back of their games. So just to summarize this one, weight 3 out of 5, interaction 3 out of 5. Sort of. I mean, you are taking tiles from a rain and you are potentially getting cards of each other, but that's kind of it, really. I think it should probably be a 2. Luck, 2. There isn't a huge amount of luck. I mean, you know what cards are there. Most people see them and all the tiles are there visible, so luck is kind of minimal here. Strategy, 4 out of 5. It's definitely one that's going to test the brain cells, and a good player is definitely going to rip on a bad player or a new player. You're probably going to lose. It's going to be one of those things. The only thing is, this game feels like something that I want to be Splendor length. I want it to be a 30-minute game, but it's with 2 players you could just about do it, but even then you're touch and go, maybe 45 minutes. You're definitely looking at more of a 45 to 75-minute game than you are a 30 to 60, and I had one game with 4 players go up to 90, nearly 90 minutes for 4 players because I had 1 or 2 slow players in it, and it was painful to get through that last half hour. So this does have a problem of overstepping its welcome if, like I said, you get the wrong type of players. Now, it sounds like there are a few negatives with it, and there are. I mean, if I'm going to rank this amongst all those other games that I've got, all these like classics here, Shadows of Kyoto and that, this is definitely lower in the list. I mean, I much prefer Hanamakoji. I love Walking in Burano. I think that one's better than this. I think Shadows in Kyoto was more enjoyable. I kind of rank it alongside Temples, in that thing. And maybe, I suppose, well, Herbalism is quite a simple game. Maybe I rank this a little bit above that. But that's not to say this game is bad. I don't think it's bad at all. It's just the case that you have to accept that It's possibly a bit longer than you would hope, and it's definitely going to be much more taxing on the brain, but you definitely have to be careful who you play with. It's going to have that issue. So, oh no, I still think it's solid, but whether it's going... I mean, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to hang on to it because it does fit into my collection, but ranking-wise, I think it gets a solid 6 for me. I don't think it's as good as some of the other stuff that Emperor S4 has put out, but I still think it's decent enough that I want to, you know, play it every now and again, or if someone has it in a game, I might even donate it to a game library, like the Dice Cafe, and say, right, you know what, this is the game I'm not keeping, but you guys have it, and that way I can play it every now and again, because it does have the advantage of, again, taxing the brain, being easy to play, really easy to teach, just not the best on component quality, and again, just outstays its welcome a little bit. That's the main two issues. So I still like it, still decent, but not quite as... I mean, Patchwork and Splendor are two really, really good games. This one effectively combines the two, but Patchwork individually and Splendor individually are better than the combination, if that kind of makes sense. So decent, but not brilliant. Okay, Realm of Sand. That's it for me. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple review. And remember, whether you bury me in the sand or leave me hanging out to dry, it's still only a game. So take care, and I'll see you at the next review. And if this comes out before next week, I'm not sure if it will, but if it comes out before the 5th of July, I will see some of you at TingCon, or This Is Not GridCon from Paul Grogan. So take care, and I'll see you soon.